Organic fertilizers have an inorganic problem. A lack of regulations on the term organic in agricultural input products can confuse farmers and gardeners.
And
When
turfgrass
Keegan
professionals.
Hillary and turfgrass professionals, lots of them. When Keegan Hilaire sent his mother Maureen Hilaire to get worm poop fertilizer for their backyard garden in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania last March, one shopping trip turned into two, one online research session followed by another. The mother-son team had to make sure the products advertised as organic were in fact approved to be used under the USDA organic standards. Maybe I'm just pessimistic, but I assume all of them are lying. Keegan Hilaire, a city dweller turned rookie farmer, told the HN, transitioning his Blackbird Farms into a Mouse, Pennsylvania to be USDA certified organic in spring of 2021. Hilaire considered the 1/8 of an acre home garden as his practical organic production. Hilaire has to be vigilant. The USDA currently does not regulate organic labels on farming supplies such as fertilizers. Just seeing the word organic does not necessarily mean it is an improved organic input material. That, I'll tell you right now, gentlemen, is not true. We have a series of labeling laws that exist in the country that is regulated by a group. I'm drawing a blank on the name of this group right now, but let me tell you, you put organic on a label that is not organic, and they will shut your ass down. AFCO.
Omri? Oh, AFCO. Yeah.
AFCO.
Yeah, they were.
If you're going to claim,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to claim organic, you better have an AFCO approved company that certified your product.
And you also have to deal with Omri as well. And Omri gets rather serious because Omri is the organization that does independent analysis of your product.
Yeah, and not to throw shade at Omri, but Omri can be paid off. It depends on how much you release of your revenue per product. Depends on how stringent that independent analysis is. And, you did not hear that from me, by the way. But the point of the article here is that there are a lot of products out there that are believed to be organic because at one time they probably were, or the bags that had organic on them haven't been changed over to the non-organic labels, and they're living kind of this odd line like the applicators in North Carolina did that eventually got caught, with things like, that have biosolids in it, for example, right? And biosolids lost its right to be claimed as organic. And you do see it out there in direct violation of the law. And this is a law now, and it's up to AFCO to be able to find this and prosecute it at this point. So here we are. Gentlemen, do organic fertilizers have an inorganic problem?
Right. I mean, absolutely. I think there's no question that the term organic fertilizer in turf grass, like let's leave agriculture, food production, all that stuff out of it for a minute, right? Just talk about turf and what is thought to be or perceived to be by buyers, right? Professional and otherwise, organic is not organic, right? And so I think there's a very, very clear distinction there that people need to be aware of, that they're not. And Matt, to your point, I mean, you see this stuff with the biosolids, especially, where again, not dogging them. There's a place for them. They can be used. There's no, there's certain assumed risks, just like anything else that we put out there, right? And to sit there and hang your hat on being an organic lawn warrior, for example, right? You really need to understand what that means. I love you, Joe. You really need to understand what that means before you make such an assertion and such a statement, right? And that's the defining line. I mean, I don't know if I said this. Well, I will say it. It's too late. I don't think there's a statute of limitations on this. So I was told this story about a company that is a organic lawn care provider, right? It's in their name. And the situation presented itself that there was very high population of broadleaf weeds, Ray, right? And so they're talking about some of the, the EPA 25B, and I'll allow you to explain what 25B is, but said, hey, we'll deal with this. And, the pushback was, well, there's a lot of stuff out here. Like, is that going to be enough? And their response was, well, if we have to spray a little tenacity too, we'll do that. It's like, wait a second, what? What? That's like bringing the bottle to the AA meeting, Ray. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Yeah.
So explain here. We're talking about fertilizers here, but just organic as a whole, right? I want to hear your thoughts on, where people are going with organic fertilizers. I think they work. I think they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I want to state that very clearly. Also, there is some limited risk stuff out there that shows a lot of promise. There's some stuff out there right now with parasitic nematodes for white grubs that it's extremely promising. However, they can't produce it in such numbers that it's commercially viable. That's the biggest problem that we have on some of this new stuff, is that they just can't make enough of it to make it commercially viable. So we're in between a rock and a hard place here of trying to implement something that's new and effective and organic without relying on something that, well, hey, it's organic and we hope it works.
Right. Well, your organic products now, they have to, again, pass through those two organizations. And you know what those two organizations check for? Is those two organizations check for, one, synthetic chemicals of any kind, two, persistent organic contaminants, and lastly, heavy metals. And when you said biosolids, the current talk or the current event right now is how much heavy metals and persistent organic contaminants are transferred via biosolids, for example. And then the other thing about, you said something about 25B product.
Yeah.
25B product are...
Explain what 25B products are.
Okay. I believe 25B products are made of or consist entirely of materials that are not EPA registered. They're considered exempt from EPA registration because they do not contain any EPA regulated active ingredients. Okay. However, I do know that a lot of those materials are still registered and allowed and disallowed on a state-by-state basis. For example, a lot of 25B type products never make it into my state.
I can believe that.
No, and you know why they don't make it into my state?
Why not?
There's not enough satisfactory evidence that they're effective.
Well, and then there's problems like Ecomite and Whack-Out Weeds. Wow, labeled as 25B exempt pesticide or glyphosate alternatives, right? And then it turns out, well, sorry, it was actually 50% of it was glyphosate. So you see that?
Yeah. You remember that exempt product that we talked about on an earlier burn and return several months ago, that come to find out it had all kinds of good shit in it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Let's see. We got glyphosate, carbaryl, permethrin. What could that possibly not kill, Matt? Just asking.
I don't know, but it was labeled with lemon oil and a surfactant and a soap of a fatty acid or something. So it was 25B exempt according to the label, but all of a sudden it got this and turns out it wasn't. So, from that alone, yes, organic in general has an inorganic problem, right? The whole thing, listen, leave it to the bad actors to find a way to manipulate any system to generate revenue that they don't deserve, right? It's the nature of how things are. And unfortunately, it's going to continue to exist. And The same thing's it will continue to go on with organic fertilizer production too. And listen, it's intended that there's a certain amount of traceability that even occurs when you go back to, say for instance, if you're using poultry litter, you have to go back to the feed that is fed to the birds right before they defecate it and you harvest it and granulate and all that fun stuff. And let me tell you, even that through companies like Omri, or there's another one out of Oregon, the Oregon Farmer, something they do fertilizer certifications, and they have different stringency on how they do that and how much traceability they employ to come up with this. And so it's not it's definitely not standardized at this time. And I think if people see an opportunity, they tend to take advantage of it. And what's disappointing about the whole thing, though, is that those same people that are in love with biosolids and top dressing it at 4 inches on their lawn and planting into it and feeling great, and they point at people like you and Ryan and say, you guys are the problem. You guys are killing your soil. You guys don't care about the environment. You guys are a toxic wasteland. When in reality, everything they're doing is a crock of, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Bullshit.
Bullshit. Thank you. Because, Matt, everything I apply or deal with, my God, it has analysis, including heavy metal analysis and presence of foreign items in it now. Because when I deal with something like, say, 2100 or even potassium nitrate, holy crap. There cannot be anything in that bag other than the 2100 or the potassium nitrate, for example. And if there is something other than, the stated item, there's trouble. I mean, in actual practice, the so-called synthetic or chemical fertilizers are extremely regulated, right? They're extremely regulated regarding their content. I mean, for example, you cannot have even ferrous sulfate, good old iron sulfate, Ryan.
Yeah.
Did you know that ferrous sulfate cannot have iron beyond the iron? It cannot have traces of cadmium, arsenic, mercury, or lead in it. I mean, even my bag of ferrous sulfate, goodness me. I mean, it has to be basically chemically pure ferrous sulfate and nothing else. And the manufacturer is required to have that level of product integrity.
I think the big overarching thing is that, especially this year, and we've gone over this, we've not beat it to death yet, but we get there close to it every week, is that know what you're using and know why you're using it. We had a really fantastic conversation with Turfology a couple of weeks ago on Thursday. I thought it was one of the better conversations we've had with any of the pros out there. And that's not to disparage people who have been on our other show. But Matt made a point that when you're a pro, when you walk into some place and say, this is what I want to buy, this is what I'm using. And you know what it's going to do. And you have full expectation, full confidence of what it's going to do and what it's not going to do. And what it shouldn't be marketed as or what it should be marketed as. And so, again, if you're not there and if you're not sure, just like we talked about in the previous segment, ask yourself some harder questions, ask yourself some better questions, and figure out, Matt, the why.
Explaining the why. Sorry, Jesse, my new YouTube channel is going to be over explaining the why of law, and there's nothing you can do to change my mind about it. Thank you for watching this clip. Be sure to tune in to the Burn and Return podcast on any of your favorite podcast apps every Wednesday, where we discuss the industry's hottest news.